Hello and welcome to the Creating and Using Reports. This is the weekly hot topic. For this week, this presentation is going to be done in 7.0, but the functionality is basically the same for 6.7 and 6.5. So if you're on either one of those versions, it will work basically the same way to create a report. And some of the other functionalities we're going to talk about with reports. So my name is Andrea Ayers. I've worked for Sugar CRM for almost about 4 years, coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm going to walk you through this presentation today, but what I'd like you to do afterwards, right after the session, is go into your instance and try to create some reports in your own environment. Reports aren't going to change any of your data, so it's not going to hurt for you to practice creating and pulling and filtering information or data that you have in your own instance. Okay. This webinar is recorded, and a copy of the 6.7 release is already on the weekly webinar page, but I'm also going to post this 7.0 version along with the 6.7 release on the weekly webinar page. Okay. Like I said earlier, for those of you that may not have been online yet, you are going to be in listen-only mode, so any questions that you have will be in the you need to post them to the questions panel, and I'll answer them if it has to do with what we're talking about that moment, or I'll wait to the end of the section and address them at that time, or at the end of the webinar. Okay. All right, so let's jump into it. So these are the objectives for this particular session. We're going to talk about how to navigate within the reports module, and then we're going to go in and to compare the different report types that are available within Sugar. There are 4, and why you would want to pick one versus the other. It depends on the type of report you want to see. Then we're going to go into Create a Report. I'm going to walk you through 2 of the report types, the most commonly used report types, so you'll know how to use them. And then we'll talk about how to modify or edit that report, how to schedule it, how to export it, how you can print the report, and then we'll talk about best practices. And I'll talk about best practices kind of sprinkled throughout all of the sections, but I'll cover them on a couple of slides at the end altogether. All right, because let's start with talking about navigating the reports module itself. So just like with every module within Sugar, when you click on that module, you'll be able to access a list view with a search at the top. Just like if you went into accounts or if you went into contacts, it has the same type of functionality. There's still going to be a search to enable you to do certain type of functionality. The advanced search is going to be available on 6.7 and 6.5. You will have just a search section on 7.0 in order to find your particular report. But all versions have a list view, so that would be the list of all the reports that are available. You can mark reports as your favorite and be able to access them quickly within the list view or within the search. And then you can also see recently viewed reports that you may have accessed before in the module menu at the top. Okay, and that's for all versions also. So let's discuss the 4 report types: row and column, summation, summation with detail, and matrix. Okay. The first one we're going to talk about is the row and column report. And I'm going to discuss some of the functionality about the report, but I want to kind of work from the top down about the different parts of a report that you're going to be able to see. And the first one is the title of the report. So it always will be at the very top of the actual report itself, above all the header information. You're also going to see an actions menu, and this is the only report that you're going to be able to see export option in this menu. All the other report types will have the other options, which are edit, duplicate, schedule, print as a PDF, and delete. And now in 7.0 we also have share, where you can email the report to someone else. But in row and column, like I said, it's the only one that will have the export functionality, that will export it as a CSV file of whatever columns you've added to that particular report. The next section is the criteria that you built this report on, or someone else built this report on, whoever built it. So the module that it's based on, the columns, whether it's scheduled or not, if you're filtering on anything, the report type, the group of people that can see it, the team, who the report is assigned to, which is usually the person that created it, not always. That information is going to be in this main section, and you can see the hide button that's right above this panel that will allow you to hide it if you need to see more information on your page. The next section is your runtime filters, and runtime filters allow you to change the filter on the report without having to go in and alter the entire report. You just want to change one filter. You don't need to change the entire report. You don't need to edit it. Maybe I want to be able to run this report instead of on New York, I want to do California. I can do that at this particular spot. Okay? And then there are the actual columns of data that you're going to see. And in all the reports, except for, let me take that back, in two of the reports, the two that we're going to create, you'll be able to distinguish what those column names are. So the actual data, and that's in the row and column, and summation with detail. The matrix and the summation report don't have columns. It's all just the accumulative count of data. It's not actual a line item to a particular record or a link to a record. Okay. So row and column reports obviously show data in rows and columns, and that's the chart that, the rows and columns that you see at the bottom of the report. It's the simplest type of report that we have, and it's one of the most common type of reports people pull, mainly so they can export it, and if they need to do additional analysis in Excel, they can do that. Okay. This is the only report type that can be seen in the SugarCRM mobile app. Okay. The other report types can't be seen, so this one can. You can actually see it in your mobile app. The next one is the summation report, and the summation report, by the way, you can already see a difference in that we have a chart that's available in summation, and this is true for the other three report types. You can have a chart, you can have no chart if you wish. It can be a horizontal bar, a vertical bar, a pie, or a funnel, and in some cases a line. So it depends on the report type that you want to be able to see, how you want to see your data, then you can pick that particular chart. You don't have to have one, but it is nice if you want to be able to see your data in a certain way. So summation is going to be able for you to, it's going to calculate simple calculations like totals. So if you want to be able to see all the leads by lead source for the month that were created in the month of October, you can create a summation report to find out those values. Okay. If you want to see the data that's behind that, meaning that I want to see the four lead sources that were cold call, that were leads that were created in October, then I would create a summation with detail. Summation with detail has all the data that a summation has, except that it gives you the meat behind the actual data. So instead of just saying there was one record, it would say, okay, and here is that record right here on the line. Okay, so it's grouping it, still grouping it like a summation by the sales stage in this case, but also it gives you total counts for that particular group, and then also you can see the grand totals at the very bottom of the report. Okay, so it's not just a grid like you see in a summation, it's the actual data of the actual records where those numbers come from. Okay, just checking the questions panel real quick to see if we have any questions. All right, nope, not yet. All right, and the last report type is a matrix report. And in a matrix report, it also shows information in a grid, and you can group up to 3 different fields. So in this case, we're grouping by username, expected close date month, so by the month, and also lead source. And in this case, we're showing the grid in a 2-by-1 format. So here's 1, 2, and then by 1. But we also can show it by 1 by 2. So the 1 would be username. Let me put a highlight on that real quick. So username is the column, the 1, and the 2 would be expected close month, and then lead source down here at the bottom. Okay? So that's a matrix report. It doesn't show the actual records where these numbers come from. It's just giving you the total count based on the categories that you want to be able to see your data. All right? Any question about report types you'd like to ask while I switch pointers here? I'll give you a second to type any questions that you may have so far. Okay. Okay, we're going to do a little quiz. You ready? So, and you can just type the answers in the question panel. So what report type allows you to export? Which one of the report types? A row and column, a summation with detail, or a matrix? Type that down into the questions panel. Okay, that's right, row and column. Excellent, thank you. Very good. All right, next question, are you ready? Which report type displays a chart? Or excuse me, which report types display a chart? Summation's one, excellent. What's another one? Summation with detail, correct. And what's the last one? Anybody? Matrix, exactly. Thank you. Okay, y'all are doing great. Are you ready? Name a chart type. So if you're looking at, let's say, a summation report, name one type of chart that you can have on that chart, on that report. Pie, good. What's another one? You don't have to name all of them, just a few. A bar, right? So there's a vertical and a horizontal. Excellent. Bar graph. Line, yep. Very good. There's also funnel, and you could have chosen no chart, which is another option. Okay. Last question. Which report type allows you to determine the grid layout? So if it's a 1x2 or a 2x1. Matrix, exactly. Very good. Wow, y'all are doing great. All right. Now let's talk about creating a report. This is what most of y'all want to see anyway. Let me clean up my questions panel here real quick. Just one second. Thank you for participating. All right. Before we just jump right in and create a report, I want to talk real briefly about the report wizard. Right? So because I think this is the most confusing part for most people, this is where people get stuck when I'm training someone one-on-one or I'm doing some kind of consulting for them. So I'm going to highlight a couple of sections. So up here at the top is what we call our breadcrumb trail. So it tells us where we are. I'm sorry, I can't do a straight line. It shows us where we are in the process of creating our report in the report wizard. So at this point, you can tell that I am right here in the middle. Let me put a arrow on it. I'm at defining the filter because that's the one that's underlined, and it also tells me here, defining filter. That's my step. Okay, so that's the first step. You can't go back in the or ahead in the breadcrumb trail unless you've finished or completed the step you're on. It's not going to let you go back to select module if you haven't done anything on the define filter yet, if you haven't added one yet. Won't let you go backwards or forwards until you completed that step. Okay, let's go to the next kind of topic here. And that is this graph down here at the bottom. So there are 1, 2, 3. It's not a graph, it's a chart. So there are 3 sections. There are related modules, available fields, and then the actual step that you're in, which is defining the filter. So related modules are, in this case, the module that we selected for this wizard is accounts. And all of the other modules associated to accounts, all the other tables in the database is another way to say that, that are linked to accounts are listed in this box. So by default, in the available fields section, because the module I selected was accounts, these are all of the fields in accounts. But if I wanted to see fields that were in the contact that's linked to the account, I would first select contacts in the related module, and then all of a sudden my related fields would say related fields contacts, and then down here would be all of the fields in contacts that I can filter by. Okay? As soon as I select a field, I just have to click on it one time, it's going to be added to this define filter box, the main panel. And I can have multiple filters. Excuse me, one second. Sorry about that. I can have multiple filters, and I can group filters together if I wish, if you want to get real complicated. And I can even change the operator. By default, it's AND. So if I have 2 filters, the AND is both of them together. I could make it OR, where either one of them apply, and it would still provide me the data that is associated with either one of the filters. Okay? So the report wizard, after the first couple steps, is going to look like this throughout. So we're going to go in and actually use this wizard and create a row and column report and a summation with detail report. Both of these reports are the top two types of reports that people create. And I'll show you why when we actually get it. You'll actually see why they have value. Okay, so let me go in to Sugar. This is our weekly webinar page, by the way, if this is where you would have registered. And I'll bring this up again at the end, but next week's sessions is creating workflows, okay? So make sure you register for that if you haven't already. All right, we have logged in as a manager, just any manager, it doesn't matter. She happens to be in marketing, but it could be anybody. And any user can create a report unless the administrator has taken that report, that module away from a particular user with a role, okay? So out of the box, all users can create reports. So I'm going to talk about a best practice later about dealing with roles and reports, but just for right now, out of the box, everybody can create a report. So report's one of my modules. I'm going to go to create a report, but before I create a report, I just want you to see the module itself. So I'm just going to click reports, and it goes to the reports module. So at the top, here is our advanced search at the top, and then our list view at the bottom. If I wanted to see if there was an existing row and column report that I wanted, I could click on row and column to filter and then find if my report is here, and it's not. The report that I want to do is I want to filter by all the contacts by a particular state, and that's not a report that's already there, okay? So I'm going to go up and create one. So reports, create report. And by the way, the instance that I am demoing in is a Ultimate Edition. So for those of you that may not have a couple of the modules that I'm going to talk about, it doesn't matter. The filtering and the steps are the same. In the second report I create, for example, you could do it on opportunities. I'm going to do it on revenue line items. The concept is the same. But in this case, it's on contacts. Everybody has contacts. I'm going to create a row and column. Here are the three. You can see as I hover over them, the highlight kind of changes for each one. I'm going to do row and column. I just click on the little icon itself. And specifically, my report is based on contacts. Be very careful that you don't pick contracts because they're right by each other in alphabetical order. So let me put an arrow on this as we go so you know where I'm at. Hold on a second. Here. So I'm going to select contacts. And then here's the report wizard part that I talked about. And in this particular filter step, I only want to filter by one filter. Okay, so we're going to start off with baby steps. And the filter that I want to select is the primary address state. I only want to see the records in a particular state. So, and that field is located in the contacts module, so the available fields in contacts is correct. And I can search by the field, or I can just scroll down and select the field. Either is fine. So if I were to put the word state in here, for example, if I could spell it right, it gives me the two fields that have state, and the one I want is the primary. Okay. The condition, I have a whole selection of conditions here, and I want it to say equals, so I'm going to leave it at equals, and I'm actually going to put in NY for New York. Okay. I'm going to make this runtime so you get to see what that looks like. So if I want to run it by California or Texas, I can at a later date after it's already been run. And I'm done with this step. That's the only filter I want. But I could add lots of others if I wanted to. Okay, so don't think that you only have to add one. You can add lots in there. And then I'm going to click Next. So when I click Next, it shouldn't be a shock that it's going to go to Choose Display Columns because I can see it in my breadcrumb trail up here at the top. Okay, so I'm going to click Next, and voila, Choose Display Columns. There they are. So the columns that I want to see, I'm going to add them all, and then I'm going to show you how to rearrange them. All right. So I don't want to have to think about, oh, do I want this column to be second or third? Just add them all and then rearrange them. So the first thing I want to add is the name of my contact. And notice I have a first name, name, last name, portal name. Now, Ultimate and Enterprise have portal names, meaning that you have the portal, customer portal, to have interactions with. If you have corporate or pro, you don't have a portal name, don't worry about it. Name is a combination of first name and last name. It's called full name. So if you just wanted the first name, that's fine. That doesn't have a lot of value because you don't know who that person is, or if you just wanted the last name. So instead of having 2 columns, I'm just going to add 1, which is name. And I also want to add the city, okay? So instead of typing state here, I'm going to type city. So not only in the state of New York, I want to see the city that the person is located in, so primary address city. And then I'm going to go to some of my related modules, and one of them is the account. So I want the name of the company this person works for, and I'm going to type the word name again. So that's the account name. You can see where it comes from here. Contact, the account, the field is name. Okay? So, and then last field that I want to add is email address. An email address you think would be in the module itself, but because it's in a separate table in the database, it's actually in a related module. So I'm going to select the word email address. Don't click the arrow, okay? Just click the word email address, and then the fields for that table in the database appear, and I want email address, okay? The actual field name email address. All right, and then I'm going to do one more, and that's the phone number. And the phone number is back in the contact module. Contacts. I'm just going to type in phone, and I'm going to put office phone. Now, I don't like this order, nor do I like some of these labels, because I have 2 labels that say name, which are not very informative, right? So first thing I'm going to do is put in here full name. I don't need the words primary address city. I'm just going to type city. And instead of name, I want account. And instead of email address, I just want email. And here, I'm just want phone. And now I want to rearrange them because I want the account to be second. I'm just going to grab and drop it. I have to grab it on the actual column name section and put it right underneath the name of the contact and the city I want to be last. Okay? So I just rearrange those however I want it by grabbing this section over here to the side. Okay? Anybody have any questions about this so far? No? Okay. So I'm going to go to the last step, which is the report's details. And in this section, I'm going to name my report. So here's a best practice, by the way. Everybody pay attention. One best practice that we have is that you put your initials. It's who created the report. Now, you may not assign the report to you. It may be actually assigned to someone else. But if you put your initials, everyone will know who actually created it. So if they have any questions about it, or they don't understand it, or whatever it may be, they know who owns it. And they also know I shouldn't be editing that report because it's not mine. So I'm going to have my initials and then the name of the report. Be very descriptive about the name of the report. So you want to have the module name in it and usually the filters. So in this case, I'm going to say contacts by state. And I'm not going to say New York because I made this a runtime filter so I can use other states if I wanted to. It's assigned to Jane, who I'm logged in on, which is fine, and global, meaning that everybody can see this report. If you wanted to create a report, let's say like for executive management, then create a team that only has executive management users in it, and then assign the report to that particular team. And they will be the only one that can see it. Okay? Now this next section is a little tricky. So it says optional related modules. And what this basically means is, do you want blanks in your report? Okay? If you're okay with the fact, in this case, that, let me take this away, that my report may not have a account assigned to it or may not have an email address, do you still want to see that contact? Okay? So I don't care if the contact doesn't have an email address. That doesn't matter. I still want to be able to see the contact in the list. And if there's not an account assigned to it, I still want to see it in the list. So if you're okay with seeing blanks, meaning that the record will display but it may not have that particular related module data, then check mark the box. Okay? If you don't want it, let's say that marketing is using this report to send out a mass mailing email in campaigns and they only want the contacts that have email addresses, then leave it unchecked. Okay? Now, if that doesn't make any sense, there is the little help icon. Click the icon and it will explain it to you. If that still doesn't make sense, let me just say this. If in doubt, check the box. Okay? If in doubt, check it. It won't hurt, all right? I have a question in the questions panel. Can other people edit your report? Great question. Yes, they can out of the box. I'm going to show you how you lock that down at the end of the session, but they can out of the box. If you don't have it locked down as a role, people can edit the report that they don't own, and they can, wait for it, delete it. Okay, which you probably don't want people deleting your reports. I had a sales guy once. He was not an administrator, and I went in with the administrator and we created all these reports together and we walked through all of them, and the sales guy on the very first day, he looked at his list of reports and he was like, I don't need 50 of these reports, and he deleted them all. Okay, she panicked. So thank goodness she was on demand and we were able to get them all back from her, but it took a little while because we needed to know, when it happened, and she didn't notice it for a couple days. So I'm going to show you how to not worry about that ever happening with you, okay? Or let's say a manager created a report and then maybe one of the sales reps or support reps deleted it. They might not know for a couple of days either. So let's try to make that not happen. I'll show you how to do that. So that's a great question. I'm going to leave it up on the questions panel to remind me. So in this case, we're going to click Save and Run, and it's going to save all the changes that you made and actually run the report at the same time. Okay? So it's going to, in this case, there's no chart. I didn't get a chart step. It's going to pull the data. Run the report again. Hold on. Okay. I hope they're not backing this up at this moment. All right. So for some reason that did not create. One moment. You're going to get a fast preview here of what we just did. Just for a moment. Okay, voila. Sorry about that. I think it timed out in the middle of that in my demo environment. So this is what the results look like. So first of all, I want to point out the runtime filter. So notice that I have it still set at New York, and right now my data down here, I have 70 records. I'm going to scroll down so you can see them all. Here they all are, okay? I'm going to change the filter to New York, not New York, excuse me, California, okay? And select Apply. And now I have 131. These folks are all in California, and here they all are. Okay? Does it make sense how the runtime filter works? So if I had 5 filters and they all were runtime, you would see them all in this box right here, and I could change them all up if I wanted to. This is the only report type, like I said, that can be exported. So here's my export option. And I'm in Chrome, so it's just going to put it at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to open it up so you can see what it looks like. And you'll notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And it also has 5 columns. Okay, and it is in the order that it is in the chart. And it's based on the last filter I did, which is the California. So these are the California contacts. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's a row and column report. Now let's quickly go in and do a row and column, a summation with detail. So create a report. And we're going to go a little bit quicker, okay? So stay with me. This is a summation with detail report. And in this case, we're going to do it on revenue line items. Now, for those of you that do not have revenue line items, you're going to do the same type of report in an opportunity, okay? So the same fields will be available in opportunity. This is a funnel sales pipeline report. That's what I want to be able to see. I want to see a funnel chart, and I want to see my pipeline. So I'm going to base it on the revenue line items for those of you that are Ultimate and Enterprise customer editions, and then for professional and corporate editions, you would do the same thing, but instead of on revenue line items, you would do it on the opportunities module. Okay. So in this case, I want to filter by the expected close date. I only want the revenue line items that are expected to close in this quarter. So I'm going to go down to this section and type in expected, and there it is, expected close date. And I'm going to say that are the current physical quarter. Okay. And I'm going to make it run time, so if I want it to do what other time period I want to do, I can. And I also want to filter on the status. For those of you that don't have revenue line items, you're going to do it on the sales stage. I'm sorry. For those of you, yeah, that's right. You're going to do it on the sales stage. I'm sorry, this is sales stage 2. Let me remove the wrong one. And I want to do only the ones that are closed won. So I want to see all of the opportunities that are closed won. Now, if I wanted to see pipeline, I would do this. I would say is one of, which I think I'll change this to. I think that's what I'll do, is one of, and I'll select, okay, all of the sales stages except for closed won and closed lost, okay? But I'm going to make it run time. So if I just want to see it for closed won or even closed lost for the quarter, I can. The next step is how I want to group my data. So just like we showed in the chart in the PowerPoint slide, in order to create a chart to say, okay, here are all the opportunities, well, instead of just having a big bucket that has all of them in it, I want to see it by a particular grouping. And in my case, I want to see it by the user that the record is assigned to. So in the related module section at the top, I'm going to select user, and specifically the field is username. So Joe has 57 opportunities, there's 57 revenue line items associated to him. And then I want to know per grouping how many he has and what the dollar amount total is. So the group by is the actual field that I'm grouping by. The summation detail summary is what do you want to see per summary? Well, in my case, I want to see how many, so that's the count. And I also want to see the sum, which is at the very bottom. So let me scroll down here. Sum of the likely, has to do with forecasting, likely amount. But for an opportunity, it would be just the opportunity amount. That's what you would select, the sum. And this will make more sense when I show you what the report looks like at the end. Okay? I know we reviewed it at the beginning, but I want to talk about it again. The columns that I want to see for my detail, the detail part of this report, is the name of the record. So in my case, the revenue line items, the name of the revenue line item. The account name. The amount, excuse me. In my case, I want to do likely. I'm just clicking it one time in the list. I want to see the lead source and the type. Now, some of these may not have values in all of them, and that's okay. Not every one of these fields is required fields, so my sales guys may not have filled all this stuff in, and that's okay. If it's not required, they probably are not going to anyway. So I'm going to put in the fields that I want. I'm going to rename this one to say account, and then next. I actually want to see a chart. I'm going to see a funnel, and I want it based on the money, not on the number. Okay. The description is the description of the chart. So if you hover over the chart, it will tell you what you're seeing in the chart. I'm not going to put a description. I don't need that. The row, it's going to round the value to the nearest $100,000. So it's going to say something like if it's 4,000, let's say $495,000, it's going to put 495K. Okay, so it will round it rather than putting all these large amounts in the chart, which makes it very cluttered. And the last step is the title. So in my case, once again, I'm going to put my initials, opportunity by assigned user. And I'm going to check mark the boxes. If it doesn't have a user assigned to it or a account, I still want to see it. Save and run. Okay, so my runtime filters at the top. So based on these sales stages for this quarter, there is $765,000 in the pipeline. They haven't closed yet. And it breaks it down by user. So Chris has 150,000, Jim has 27,000, Max has so on. You can see all the totals. And then the chart also down here at the bottom. And then it breaks it down. So it gives me Chris's 40 records and the dollar amount totals. But if I want details, I can see those details down at the bottom. And notice these are hyperlinks that will take me to the specific record or the revenue line item record or the account, and then the totals. Okay, so I do have some blanks. You can see them here underneath type. They just weren't filled in. That doesn't mean that the report's wrong. It just means the data wasn't complete. And it breaks it down for each person. Here's Jim. He only has 11. Here's the totals. And then way at the bottom is the grand totals. So there are 335 revenue line items, and the total amount is here. It rounds it in the chart. It's round numbers. But in the actual data itself, in the information at the bottom, in the list, it gives you the totals per record and then the grand total value at the bottom. Okay? Now, a couple of things that you can do with this report. I can schedule this report. So if I want it to be sent to me every Friday at 7 a.m., because our staff meeting's at 8, on a weekly basis, I can set it up right here on Schedule the Report, make it active, and click on Update Schedule. Okay? Now, it is only going to be sent to the person who is assigned the report. So, question that usually is asked is, well, what if you want it to be sent to your boss? What you want to do is duplicate the report, or copy in version 7 as the original type. It's going to take you into the report wizard again. I don't want to change any of this. I want to go to the very last step. I'm going to change the name. In this case, I'm going to say Jim. I'm not sure what Jim's last name is. Let me see. Jim. That's him. JB. I got to name it again. All the information's okay. Save and run. So it's a brand new report. It's not your report anymore. It's assigned to Jim, and then you're going to schedule it for him. Okay? So you do it the same way. I'm going to say every Friday, 7 a.m. on a weekly basis. It's going to be sent to him via email. Okay? You can also print the report. It does it as a PDF. I'll open it up to show you. Going to open up the bottom in Chrome. As soon as my Acrobat opens up, I'll show it to you. Here it is, open on the screen. So here's my chart here at the top, and then all the data and the grand totals at the bottom. Okay, 335 and 765,000, same as that's in the chart itself. I also can, we already talked about copy. Edit is going to do the same thing as the duplicate. It's going to take you back to the wizard and let you change it, except that it's not going to delete out the title. So if you need to make any changes. And notice that I have an edit and I have a delete, and this report is not assigned to me. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how you can remove those in a minute. But you also have this feature called Share, which allows you to email it to another person, whoever it is. Automatically opens up the Compose email feature and allows you to send. Now the Share is only available in 7.0. It is not available in 6.7 or 6.5. But if you schedule it, have it emailed to you, you can forward it to whoever you want. Okay, so that feature is still there. All right, so I'm going to close this. I'm not going to actually send it. So that's some of the features that you can do with this instance. One other thing you may want to do is mark it as your favorite, which is the star at the top. And the star allows you to, just like with any record in Sugar, mark it as your favorite, and then be able to access that report from your home page or from the reports module itself. If you need to do a search by your favorite report, something like that, you can. Okay, so that's the favorite reports section. All right, let me, I do have another question here. Give me 1 second to read it, and then I'll see if I can get you an answer. Okay. So the question basically is, so you have a field inside of Sugar that says 3-8 or 9-12, and when you export it into Excel, it converts all of those to date fields. So because we're not, the only thing we're pulling over into Sugar is the raw data of the field, not what type of field that it is. That is a text field and not a date field, type of field that it may be. Excel is the one that's changing it over. So you'll have to just format those fields, just highlight the column in Excel and make sure you format the field as a regular field or a text field rather than date, because date's what it's recognizing as a default. It's not something that Sugar can change. It has to do with Excel. It doesn't have to do with Sugar itself. Well, that's not a great answer, but that's more of an Excel issue than Sugar itself. Okay. So I understand your question, but it's the data that we're pulling over from reports, from Sugar in the report into Excel. We don't send over the type of field. We only send over the 3-8. So it's going to say the 8th of March, because that's the default in Excel. Okay, sorry. All right, so let me pop back over to the presentation here. And we talked about modifying, scheduling, exporting, printing already. And let me talk about a few best practices. So one best practice is when you are adding new fields in Studio, they might not show up in reports right away. Okay. One of the reasons why they might not is because Reports has already cached some of those fields already in your browser. So you'll just need to close your browser, reopen it back up, and those fields will be available in Reports. Okay. The other thing you do is clear your cache and go back in. So it saves time. Sugar caches all of those fields in Reports, so it doesn't take as long processing time to create a report if you as long as because it's caching those particular database fields in the modules that they're located in. So all you have to do is close it and open it back up, the browser. Also, this is the one that I wanted to talk about. I'm actually going to show you how to do it. Create a role for all the users to not allow or restrict or take away the ability for them to delete or edit other users' reports. Okay? And like I said, it goes back to the scenario I showed a while ago. So I'm going to log out as this manager and log in as an admin. And I'm going to go to roles on the administration page. So roles are right here. If you haven't attended the users, teams, and roles hot topics, it's a good idea. I would recommend it. Roles are where you start taking away certain capabilities. And I'm just going to call this role reports because I'm going to add everybody to it. It's not going to be restricted for admins, but everybody else, it will fall into this. So what I'm going to do is go down to the module here that says reports. And I want them to be able to see it, so it's enabled for them. They're going to have normal access, so that's fine too. But this column, this is the, I'm just going to scroll up so you can see it. This is the delete column, and the fourth column is edit. So here, I'm going to say that only the owner, which is the person assigned to the report, the owner of it, can delete it, and only the owner can edit it. Okay? I'm going to click Save. Now this role has no one linked in it right now. Nobody is assigned to this role. It's empty. There's no users down here. So I have to go in and select the users I want to be in this role. And I'm going to select everyone, which includes everybody in this list except me as the administrator. And then I'm going to click Select. And they're all down here now. There are 10 of them. Now the next time that Jane logs in to a report and she pulls a report that is not hers, she can see it, she can duplicate it, she can print it, she can schedule it, but she cannot delete it and she cannot edit the report because it is not hers. Okay? Okay, so I have a question. I do customer service and telemarketing in my company, and usually I create a report using MS Word on the data I have collected on each store and I've contacted. While I do this, I also log the call into Sugar. Is there a way to create a report with such info? Yeah. So in reports, when you create your report, so whether you're going to do a row and column or summation, it doesn't matter. Just do it on calls, the calls module. And then calls are linked to any type of record. So when you log it in Sugar, log it towards the contact or to the account, and you can filter back and pull that particular accounts associated to you. You can pull the what you talked about, any other field information that you may be putting in your Word document. You can just pull that data into in through the report also. It's just a field, right? So you could be able to definitely pull that within Sugar also. Okay? It's kind of your logged call report. And there may actually be a report. Let me check real quick in, let me do calls. See if there's one out of the box. So it has calls by teams by user. You may want to take that, duplicate it, and then you can alter any report that may already be there. Okay, which is my next best practice. And so thank you so much. Instead of creating a report from scratch, always see if there's a report that exists already. Duplicate that report or copy, if you're talking about version 7, and then use that copied version, make additional tweaks or changes that you need, and save it, okay, rather than creating it from scratch. Okay. And then also when you're new at creating reports, it may be a good idea to plan out your report on paper first before you sit down in front of Sugar and start trying to figure out what you want. Decide what you want to group by, decide the columns that you want to see, decide what filters, what module it should be based on, and then when you sit down in front of the report wizard, you'll know what to expect and know what to put in all of those particular areas. Okay. All right, I have another question. Can Sugar make a report for how many archived emails by user? Okay, that's a good question. 1 second. So I believe that we have emails, not email address, but emails, and the type archived. So you can filter by only the emails that were archived, and then group by on the group by field. Don't do a row and column then, do it by summation, and group by user, okay? And it will give you the count per archived email. So how many by user, how many emails have the type of archive. Hopefully that answers your question, Eric. All right, good. Okay. All right, so we talked about navigation. We talked about the characteristics of the different report types. We created 2 reports. We talked about modifying or editing, scheduling, exporting, printing, sharing, duplicating and copying, and then we talked about best practices. All right, does anybody have any additional report questions you'd like to ask? I'll give you a few seconds to type in the questions panel. And while you're doing that, I just want to do one more plug for next week's session, which is creating workflows. You need to be an administrator in order to create workflows. Workflows are simply automating a business process. So if currently every time someone closes a sales opportunity or they close a case or whatever it may be, some kind of action inside of Sugar, you send an email to them to say thank you for doing that, that was great, this is a great sale, or you send something out to the customer or whatever it may be, most of those things can be automated within the workflow. So a trigger is needed, meaning a field changes or a certain time has elapsed, and then some kind of action or operation is going to occur to trigger something, an email, a record creation, whatever it may be inside of Sugar. And that session is next Thursday, same time, same place, but next Thursday on October 24th. Okay? If you have not registered for it yet, make sure you go to our website, sugarcrm.com, go to support. Let me show you how to navigate. And then underneath training, there are weekly webinars. And reports is here, one we're just finishing, and the creating workflows is right below it. Okay, and so on. There's other sessions that may be of value to you also. Okay, all right. All right, I don't see any other questions in the questions panel. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. I appreciate your time and good luck with using Sugar. And we will hopefully see you in next week's Creating Workflows. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.